welcome everyone. It's so good to have you here on a beautiful day where I am on the Central Coast. A little bit brisk today, but it's really, really nice. Now, in organizations, we see a lot of attention focused on the leadership and what they do really well. We see also quite a bit of focus on those new coming into the organization. But the ones who tend to be forgotten are those right in the middle managers. And today we're going to focus around just why middle managers matter. And let's take a look at what are some of the barriers that they face, but also some ways that they can be really, really, really successful. And we're going to focus in on those. And we've got a small group today, which is exciting because it means we get lots of interaction. So if you can pop on your cameras, that'd be absolutely fantastic. Now, when you're new into a job or you're a junior, all you have to do is do your job. You generally get trained for it. People teach you around how to do it. You get really, really good at what you do. And if all goes well, you get promoted to the next level. And then you get promoted to a position where your new responsibility is for the job that you used to do. So you're now responsible for the job that you used to do. But the problem we find in many organizations is that they don't have any training for being a middle manager. So in most cases, we have grown up, we go to university, or maybe we spend time on the job. We're taught how to do something really well. But when it comes to middle managers, most of the time they just tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, great, now we want you to lead people. And there's generally not much around it. But we are seeing a shift in the industry, which is fantastic, and looking forward to seeing more shifts as over the coming years. Sometimes the middle managers are thought of as the bridges in the organization. The gap between the senior leaders and the individual contributors, the employees in the organization. But I want you to see it as much more than just a bridge that provides that gap from the senior leadership above and the employees below, to think of it more as a web. And you've got to be able to move in multiple directions, because not only are you interacting directly above you and directly below you, quite often you've got other managers in the middle that you're also connecting with. And so we've got to be able to think of it as a web. And how do we hold their company together? The middle manager is one of the most critical components of an organization. They have a huge effect on culture and the ability of the strategy to get implemented effectively, which is so, so important. So today we're going to look at how do we move from being individual contributors through to your really good people leaders. That's our focus for today, which I'm really excited to work with you on. But I'm curious, in the chat here, I would like to know if you are a middle manager. So if you're a middle manager, so someone that might have, you got senior leaders above you, but you might be leading a team below you. If you have, can you just pop a Y in the chat if you are a middle manager? Okay, Nathan, Varsha, Zoe, great, Emily. Okay, good. All right, so we've got a few people in here, and we've got some that might be in senior leadership roles, some that might be just employees, which is fantastic as well. Just going to mute you there, Anna. I can see you're on the move, which is exciting. But let's think about what are the barriers to middle management success. I'd love you to pop into the chat. What do you think could be barriers to middle management success? What do you think they might be? Someone who's in middle management, stepping in there maybe for the first time or been there for a while, what might their biggest barriers to success be? Team doesn't feel they need managing. So you've got a lot of strong individual contributors who go, I've got this, I don't need your help. All right, communication skills, Nathan, excellent. Yeah, communication is a big barrier to success. Your ability to communicate in multiple directions. Emily, existing relationships, moving from being the team member then into leadership. So moving from being more of a friend to being friendly, in a sense, can be quite a challenge. We've got Sarev, welcome. Communicating from techniques perspective, not people. Okay, from a technical perspective. Okay, good. Vashnava, perform individual tasks while managing others. Okay, so thinking about the tasks that we perform versus always having to worry about what everyone else is doing. Yep, thanks, Sarev. Technical. But what we know is that is very much when it comes to middle management, what got you here won't get you there. And so some of the biggest challenges we see that people face in regards to, and look, I've got a couple more coming here, balance of managing up and down. Thanks, Charlotte. Varsha, finding the sweet spot between doing yourself versus delegating. Excellent. Mahindra, pushing for a growth-based role. Beautiful. So some of the challenges we face, and I'm going to go more macro here. One of the biggest ones is mindset. And we're going to dive into sort of 10 key mindset shifts that middle managers need to be successful and be effective later on today. But we also need to be able to think about our communication. How do we communicate up? How do we communicate down? How do we communicate with ourselves? Can also be a big challenge when we're stepping in here. Change, as we know, change happens quite often, and we're sort of more in, if we think about change from a ocean point of view, it used to very much be like waves of change. So there'd be a change, then there'll be a lull, then there'll be a change, and there'll be a lull. So we kind of got a bit of time to get used to what we're in. Now we're like turbulent, rapid river rapids. And so change is kind of happening everywhere all the time now. And so we have to be resilient and used to that. And that requires some real key skill sets from a middle manager to make sure not only we're managing the expectations from above, but we're also managing our people below and how effective they can be. The next kind of challenge that we see quite often with middle managers from macro level is the administration tasks that come into play. You know, you might be so good at what you do, but now you've got to fill all these forms in. You've got to checklists to complete. You've got other things that you need to be aware of. And the administration tasks, a lot of people are not ready for that. You know, they're anxious of, okay, I've now got to manage other people, but they don't realize the administration that can be part of it. Pressure obviously makes sense. You got pressure from above, you've got pressure from below, you've probably got pressure from the side as well. It's 360-degree pressure. So it's not just three-way or up and down, it is sideways as well. So you have multiple layers of pressure, but you're probably also dealing with internal pressure of maybe some imposter thoughts, imposter syndrome. Do I belong here? Will I get found out? Am I capable of this? Am I good enough? There's lots of internal pressure that goes on. And relationships, which was identified earlier. You know, you're now moving from being the friend to being more friendly, especially in that workplace. So it's a big shift. And sometimes it can feel a little bit lonely along the way. But I find the biggest role that the middle managers faced is to unlock trust. And they are the key. They are the key to unlocking trust inside an organization, because it comes down to communication flow, but demands whether there's understanding from above of what the employees are feeling as individual contributors. And so they are a key component of trust, is really important. Now, when we're looking for new middle managers, right? Like, because quite often what happens in an organization, it's a career progression. You're doing well, really, really good at what you do. And then they go, cool, the next career progression, it generally tends to be into a people manager role, which I don't always agree with. I think that sometimes our individual contributors should earn as much as the CEO because they're damn good at what they do. So why do we need to differentiate you, like, from a pay perspective, because you're now managing people? I think both sides can be just as important as each other. So it doesn't always have to be that career progression into people manager role, but I think, but it's important. So if we're identifying middle managers, what sort of characteristics do you think we should be looking for? Pop into the chat. What type of characteristics do we want to look for in an individual as a potential middle manager? 1, 2 words, maybe 3 words. Keep them nice and short here. Add value. Yeah. So Zoe, that's good. So add value in to the team. Could be team management. How would you see team management, Vaishnava, before they become a people manager? Just a question. Charlotte, EQ, IQ, Nathan, people skills. Let's be a little bit more specific. What type of people skills are we looking for? These are good, by the way. Listening skills. Fantastic. 100% we need good listening skills. Adaptability, problem solving, emotional intelligence. Great. All right, keep them coming. While you're doing that, I'm just going to, up on the screen, it's just kind of quite a big list actually of certain things that you can start to be looking for. It's not a complete list, and it's not a one size fits all. And so different things that are useful when you move into a people management role. And so these are kind of good things that we need to be looking for before they get there, because that will show up in other ways once they're leading people. And by the way, you can take screenshots as we go through. And also afterwards, we will share the slides as well. Okay, so I'm just going to take that down though, but I'm going to make it a little bit tougher challenge now. What sort of characteristics would suggest leaving someone as an individual contributor? A little bit tougher now. What sort of characteristics would you suggest leaving them as an individual contributor? I'm just looking back at the chat there. Mahindra, understand people priorities, accept challenges, risk taker, great. Vaishnava, as a team lead or team member, if they demonstrate initiative, interpersonal skills, leadership skills, great. Okay, so in the moment we're popping into the chat, what sort of characteristics would suggest leaving someone as an individual contributor? A little bit tougher. Not a team player, not working as a team. Too technical.
I'll leave.
Introverted.
Oh, I'm just going to mute you there, Anna. You can mute yourself. There we go. Could be introverted. Yeah, I did hear that. Too self-centered. Okay. But there also can be some positive things here too. Cannot see the bigger picture. Some people just love focusing on one thing. Some people are just fascinated by the technicality of their role or the process of the role, and they're not interested in leading other people. They just want to get on and do their own work. That's what drives them. So we need to understand the motivations of people, which is really, really important. But when it comes to moving from an individual contributor to a great people manager, yes, we've got to focus on what you do. And there's a lot of things that change. And that's probably the easier part. The hardest part to do when it comes to change is to change the way that you think. So it's not merely a change of what you do, it's a change in how you think. That's the biggest challenge when it goes to moving someone or you moving into a middle management role. And so we need to be aware of that. So let's have a look at, from a shifting mindset point of view, what are some of the things that we have to be aware of that are very different from being an individual contributor to now being a people manager? So shifting from doing to delegating, someone mentioned that early on. You know, quite often when we are individual contributor, we are used to one way of thinking, but we've now got to be open to a whole lot of new perspectives on how something might be done. And quite often middle managers will be really good at something and want to jump in and go, no, this is how it's done, or start doing it themselves. And I'm guilty of this. I've done it plenty of times before. And so it's something you've got to be able to shift out of and be patient sometimes and give people space and understand there are different ways of doing things. We've got to move from solving problems to anticipating what the problems might be. It's kind of like you need to be present, but 5 steps ahead in a way. So what might be the problems that people are going to face? Okay, if they're taking this approach, anticipate what could be the obstacles they may face or the challenges that are coming up. Move from very much defined challenges to now quite ambiguous challenges. As an individual contributor, you generally get given something that's quite specific. As a people manager, you've generally got a more macro abstract thing that you're provided. And now your job is to then get clarity and make it easier for people along the way. I've talked about this one. We need to move from being a friend to friendly. Yes, you can be friends outside, but you've got to be careful of, in that role, being seen as, I suppose, looking after favorites or along the way. Success from self to success for others can be quite a shift for some people who are very driven, maybe have achieved a lot. Thinking about doing, agenda doing, to now you're setting the agenda of maybe a project, maybe a meeting. Your best work, so your mindset's got to shift from doing your best work to helping others be able to do their best work, unlocking what can allow someone to do their best work. Moving fast to now moving obstacles. So we're going to move obstacles out of the way to allow people to do things really well. And shifting from I know the answer to helping people find the answer. And we can quite often jump in and go, I have already got this. And we don't give people that space they need to be able to really identify it themselves. So have you caught that? Okay, good. So that is kind of 10 mindset shifts that we recognize as kind of really key. But when it comes into, when we're thinking about people inside an organization, people tend to be one of 4 things that I find in a way. We've got those who are perfectionists and they're very focused on quality. They want great results, but they take a little bit longer to do things, and sometimes too long. We've then got those who are very much performance focused. They're focused on transactions, KPIs, the quantity of things that they do. And so it's a really, really fast process. So we got slow process with the perfectionist, fast process with the performance-minded person. Then we've got the productivity person who's focused on output and is very efficient. It's an efficient process. But as a people manager, we need to make sure that we are moving into the middle space here, and we're helping other people think more about professionalism. And this is where you're focused on culture, people, service, sustainable results, and this is where the high performance occurs. And so quite often, if we get stuck in one of these circles on its own, we're gonna have conflict with people in the group. So we've got to get ourselves into that middle to be able to nurture those that may sit more in one circle than the other, because we've got some that are going to be moving faster, some moving a bit slower, some focused just purely on output, and it's kind of at a good pace, but it's neither really great or they're not getting enough performance out of it. So how can we sit in that professionalism space, which is really important? So this is a little bit maybe a different model than what you might have seen before. But if we get middle managers right, what does that look like? Because before you become, when you're an individual contributor, how do you receive validation? How do you know you're doing a good job? What will you hear? What will you see? Pop it in the chat. What are sort of things that you hear when you get it right as an individual contributor? What do people say to you? Okay, feedback from managers. Yep, well done, great job, Anna, great, excellent. Can be things like, I love, what's the difference between performance and productivity? Sorry, okay, good. Productivity is about getting as much done efficiently. Performance is about chasing the KPIs and the results. And so it's like, say if you're in sales, you're the sales manager, you might be, or the salesperson, You might be driven by getting as many sales as possible. The person who's delivering those might be focused more on being a perfectionist, at getting that right for the customer. Okay, so does that help you understand the difference there? Just in that context of that model. So some other things when you know you've got it right. I love the way you completed the project. You're kicking some goals, maybe congratulations on hitting a new sales record. They're the types of things you might hear from validation. Thanks, Saurav. But when you move to being a people manager, how do we know when we get it right there? And so you're not generally going to hear well done as much. You're not going to hear about that you are kicking goals. You're going to hear different things. So the validation of whether you're doing well shifts as well. We need to be aware of what to listen for to know whether we're doing a good job or not as a people manager. And here are some of those things. Now I understand. Our team is really gelling. I'm finding it's really connected. You get me, you understand me, or I'm excited to work on this. So the language shifts when you become a people manager. And so if you're wanting to know whether you're doing a good job or not, you need to be looking for these type of phrases or things being said to you as well to know whether you're there. But when middle managers are operating at full potential, what do we see in organizations? We will see better engaged employees. We see less burnout and turnover. Sorry, Zoe, yeah, from your managerial team, you're more likely to hear that from your team. It will be from your team, Zoe. That's more from the team, those. How do you know when you get it right? So thanks for asking. So when you're operating at full potential, less burnout, turnover, speed to problem resolution is going well. It's more agile. There's more resilience from the team. Greater competitive advantage can occur because you're able to ensure that the strategy is being implemented effectively. There's enhanced teamwork and culture, and we start to see honest conversations being normalized. It is how we do things around here. People have the permission to speak up. That is when middle managers operating in that full potential. So just some key things to be aware of. So when we think about middle managers, that mindset shift is quite a big one. And it takes a bit of an adjustment. And so if you're a leader here and you've got middle managers below you, it's important to understand what they're going through. Understand that this is their situational confidence is going to be low. They might have been really confident in their technical role as an individual or their specific role, but now they're leading people. It's a different mindset. And so some will project really good confidence. Others you'll see they're struggling, but never put the blame on them. Never suggest it's their fault. It is always our role to nurture them and think of them as they're just a beginner. And so we've got to approach that and not just literally hand the reins, full empowerment, and walk away. We need to be able to give them some empowerment and autonomy, but also be there to guide and nurture effectively. Now, for us at Speakers Institute Corporate, when we look at middle managers and when we're dealing with middle manager programs with organizations, here are the kind of 10 key elements that we focus on and that are really important. And so maybe if you're working with middle managers, here are some areas that they're going to need some support with. As I said, this is what we deliver when we're working with middle managers in a program. So confidence, not only self-confidence, but how do they project and inspire confidence in others? How to create cultures of courage, care, and connection. So how can they create a space of permission for people to be courageous, to normalize those courageous conversations, to believe they can take risks, that permission there, the ability to connect teams, the ability to be able to manage people, productivity, the performance, and the professionalism, which we spoke about a little bit earlier. How do we lead people and manage change in this uncertain, turbulent time in a way? Because it's unlikely we're going to get waves of change. Going back to waves of change, we're always going to be in lots of change happening. And how do we manage people and keep them agile and adaptable through that space? the tactics of how do you prioritize, delegate, and make decisions really, really well, or more importantly, how do you get collective decision making working? Collaboration, how do we get people to collaborate and not just do really good things on their own? How do we get them to leverage the insights and knowledge and expertise they have to help other people in what they do? Normalize those conversations, which you spoke about before, those honest conversations around people doing things really well. But when people could improve, or maybe there's unacceptable behavior, because that's always a tough one for anyone, and especially a people manager, when you got to go into conversations that need to be honest with people you might have been friends with, that's a big hurdle to overcome mentally, a big shift. How do we manage crisis, uncertainty, and complexity? How do we synthesize ideas and communicate more effectively? It's not just about our idea. We're taking a collective of ideas, or maybe we've got an abstract idea from a macro perspective coming from above at a strategy. How do we synthesize those ideas and give people clarity and direction? And then talent. Your role now, you start to become a coach, and how do you nurture talent? How do you support talent? How do you ensure that they get to grow through not only what they're doing well, but what also they're going to need to help them improve and grow? As we close out today, I want you to go back to at the start there. And we talked about that becoming a new manager is merely a change in what you do. Isn't merely a change in what you do. It's a change in how you think. And we've got to give people time to change the way they think and view their work, because it is, as we saw before, there's some big mindset shifts and we need to prepare people for them. And if you are a middle manager, you need to get ready for them. So thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure having you here. I love the contributions in the chat. And I look forward to hearing how you're going as a middle manager, and maybe even how we can support you.